First of all, my father was in Korea.
Okay.
And he got out when I was born to come back to Florida because my mother had left us and he didn't want to raise a single child in the military. So for years I heard all about it, and I went to college. I went to UF, and I went early, and I graduated early. Well, I came home, and here I am, a college graduate. I just was 18, and he was just being real authoritarian, and I wasn't liking it too much. So I went down, a bunch of my friends went, and they all were going to take what was called the AVAST at the time. It was a test to get in. And I took it as a joke. The problem was I scored highest. And so immediately the recruiter said, you know, we can do this and this and this for you, and how soon do you want to go, and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I don't know if I can pass the physical. And they said, oh, you can. I went ahead and went to Jacksonville. Just on the spur of the moment, I was mad at my dad, and I thought, you know, I'll fix him. I'll just go in the military. 2 days later, I called him from Fort McClellan, Alabama. I was in the actual last class that were considered WACs, Women Army Corps. After that, everybody became soldiers. I was a WAC, though. I called him and I said, you know, I'm ready to come home. And he's like, what do you mean? I said, well, I joined the Army, but I'm really not having a very good time. And all I heard was him laughing and laughing and laughing, and he hung up. And I thought, oh, you want to be that way? Okay, I'll just show you I can do this. 2 weeks later, I was squad leader, and I was with all females. It wasn't mixed then. It was all females, female drill sergeants. Everybody was female. Company commander. It was a different world because we were real segregated. We were just women. Now they have women and men all together, same platoon, same squad. At least the Army does. I really wanted to drive heavy equipment, but they didn't have a place. So they put me in just transportation. I had a direct assignment to Fort Ord, California. And while I was at Fort Dix, New Jersey, my MOS school, which was my training to be in transportation, I tore up my ankle. I broke my ankle. Well, that sets you back. It's either stay there or come home, let your ankle heal, and go back. So that's what I did. I finished my training. Well, what I didn't realize is when I came home, I broke my own contract. So when I finished my MOS schooling, I was shipped directly to Germany. And I am a Vietnam era veteran because 1974 is when I went in. But I got to Europe and I became a battalion commander's driver. A battalion's made up of 3 companies, or ours was. I was the only female in the entire battalion. They had no idea what my uniform was to look like. I mean, wow. I wore men's pants and women's tops. Nobody even said anything because they didn't know any different, but it was easier for me. We wore all green at the time. We didn't have perma-press. You had to iron them then, starch them and iron them, which I wasn't real good at, but I learned. But I real quickly became, you know, I'm the only female. They had to clear out the half of the 3rd floor for me in the barracks. Mm-hmm. And all the guys were really pissed off about it. They were like, no, this isn't right. You get 6 rooms. We're crammed together. And I'm like, okay, I'm not rooming with any of you. Finally, they moved me down about 6 months later to the female barracks, where the medics were. And most of the medical people were girls, so I got to be down there with them. We got our own rooms and own bathroom. So the guys were all happier. My battalion commander was a lieutenant colonel. His name was Alexander Evans. Great guy. My XO was the only black officer in not only our battalion but our regiment, or our division, excuse me, because there just weren't many black officers either. And he was a West Point graduate, a major. He was tough. He had 8 kids, and they were all there. But there was a lot of stigma put on being female and being in a company of all men. The one thing that I was really glad of is that basic training made me kind of tough. So I carried the guide on and set the pace for the entire battalion to run. So I ran constantly. We ran 5 miles a day. We did PT every day. So I got really pretty tough. But it was an altogether good experience. I got pushed on to be USER Soldier of the Year in 1976. You know, you think so until you get out there and you see. And I think only because there are more women now than there were, it's easier in that respect, but still, you're in a male-dominated atmosphere. So if you don't have a lot of testosterone, you grow up. It teaches you to be responsible. It teaches you, when you make a commitment, to stick to it. There are a lot of horror stories coming out of Afghanistan and Iraq, and Desert Storm in particular, about women in the military over there. But I don't know. I see some of it, and some of it I don't. You just have to be determined. You have to make it, you have to be sure within yourself that this is what you want to do. There are jobs in the military just like everywhere else. You can go in there and be a secretary to somebody. You could go in there and be my granddaughter has played cello for 5 years. She'd go in there and be part of the Army band. Depends on what goals you want to set for yourself, how far you want to go. And do you want to make it a career? Are you using this to get your GI Bill so you can go to school? There's a lot of different things that you have to look at before you make a commitment like this. A thing called reforger that goes on in Europe, or it did back in the day. I don't know if it does now or not. But they had, we were to be like the German forces, and airborne. 82nd and 101st dropped in to see if they could take over. And so we went to the field, and when I say the field, I mean we're out in the boonies. And once again, I was very unaccustomed to having to dig a foxhole or live in a tent for a week, eat MREs. These are things like Rudy, they did that to begin with. I never had that experience. Even in basic training, we did bivouac for 2 days. That was it. But we got clobbered. I mean, 82nd and 101st dropped in, and they just wiped us out. And I remember my colonel looking at me, and he goes, "You're really not much fun in a foxhole." And I went, I had an M60, which is a big, heavy gun, and I had it set on a tripod, and they came in behind us, and I was dozing off to sleep. And I'm thinking, you didn't hear him either. Of course, I couldn't say it to him like that, but I'm thinking, you didn't hear him either, bud. You're talking about me. You're sitting over there asleep. I'm laying over here asleep. Now we're dead. But there's a lot of things, that, different things. We spent 256 days of the first year I was there in the field. And I mean, living in tents. He didn't. I did. He lived in a little, like a Quonset hut with other officers. They had a little better than us, but it just taught us a lot, like where to get the best potatoes. You run over a field of potatoes, you get to eat those potatoes. Better than MREs. Potato soup's good. But that's about it. Basic training was fun after you got used to being screamed at constantly. But my son just retired from the Air Force. So we've had my dad, my father-in-law, my husband, and now my son. Well, and I was in there too, but I'm just saying there was so many of us at once. My middle son decided not to go, which is probably a good thing, but my son came home. He retired in November. He just came home in May, so he had a real good time too. His wife will retire this November, so we've kind of all been in it.
That's wonderful. Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay.